pick up on my piano skills again. Okay, anyways, I'm way more of a guitar player. Alright, so let's talk about today's video. I just watched a video from Kyle Beats, and he was talking about music theory, and I literally just watched it, and I wanted to make this video because he's a guy who's never learned any instrument and whatnot, and he interviewed one guy who's a piano player. And the thing is, because he's a piano player, I know he knows other musicians and different instruments, but he's doing beat making, so it really doesn't count. But if you want to become like a producer, right, there's a difference between beat making and producing. Now, if you listen to Kyle Beats stuff and then listen to his friend's stuff, his friend is way better. All his stuff is more unique and it's got way more flavor. Kyle Beats is very kind of standard, corny beat. There's nothing special to it. The chords he's doing are not that fancy, right? He's not doing... Whereas the other guy, he definitely will have very cool chord progressions and stuff because he knows how to play. And he was trying to prove that you don't need music theory to make music. And while I'm someone who was a teacher for 2.5 years, I taught guitar, violin, bass, viola, and production, how to record and stuff. And while I do agree music theory is not that useful, even as a musician myself, I've always hated music theory fundamentally because I felt like it wasted a lot of people's time majority of the time. There's only a small amount of music theory that I find is very useful, and you need a basic level of music theory to be able to just communicate with other musicians, and that's why music theory is important. Because, for example, the trumpet, they're all tuned in a different format than what we use today. So I remember being in jazz band, trumpets players would be playing like an A or something, and then I'd play an A, and I'm like, that's not an A. But the teacher would be talking, was like, go to your A and play this part where it starts with A and da da da. And then I would hear them play, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. And then I played it on my guitar, and I'm like, yeah, that's not an A. Turns out, this is how you learn being a musician, being around other musicians. Trumpets are tuned to a completely different temperament. So if you want to bring in a trumpet player and you write sheet music for him, oftentimes they have to convert it or do something, because if you give them a C and they play a C, it's not the same note, right? So that's why they say, play a concert C, because that tells everybody, okay, we're looking for this note. Because those instruments were put in a specific time and made in a specific time, they don't tune the same way, and so their notes don't align the same way. An A for them is not an A for a piano player, a guitar player, a bass player, or a violin player for that matter. They're on their own different thing. And I just think that's in general for all brass, if I remember. I think the trombone was the same way. So when it comes to music theory, I think it's very, very important for music creation, but I don't like to call it music theory because music theory encompasses a lot of things that are kind of useless. So what I wanted to make this video about is talk to you guys about something different, and that's called instrument theory. And that's theory relative to the instrument that you're learning, or just the instrument that you're trying to put into your song. Reason being is not every instrument's music theory doesn't apply to every instrument the same way. For example, I'm going to pull this up in a second, but I just realized I also need to pull up one more thing. Give me a second here. So we're going to switch on over to this. Okay, so first we're going to start with the piano, okay? So we have our C major scale, our C sharp major scale, our D major scale, our E flat major scale or E major scale or F major scale. As you see, they all like line up differently. Okay. Whereas guitar, okay, every single major scale is the same shape. You know, so these are all the different major scales. If I wanted to play a major scale on the guitar, doesn't matter what scale I want to play. So let's just, if I want to play G major, I do that shape. If I want to play A major, I do the same shape. If I do B major, same shape. It's the same thing every time. If we're talking about the first pattern being the main pattern, our main scale. And these are just, this is instrument theory. This is how the scale spreads out throughout the guitar. Whereas piano, we see this here, every scale has a different shape. So what that means is piano players are going to have a different note layout than guitar players, and they're going to approach the scale completely differently. And how they put notes together is going to be completely different. Same thing with saxophone players. Me as a guitar player, I like to learn from saxophone players because their notes fall fundamentally different. Their scale shapes aren't going to match up with piano. They're not going to match up with guitar. We have shapes, but they're different completely, which means our tendencies are going to be different because we'll do different things, just simply because of convenience and how the notes are laid out. So, what does that mean? Like instrument theory, what am I trying to get to the point as? Let's take something as simple as the convenience of the piano on something as simple as a C major scale, right? They're all right next to each other. Now, while the guitar, all the shapes are the same, none of the notes are next to each other. So if I just play it next to each other, it's just chromatic. It's not doing anything, right? The way the notes lay out force me to make certain decisions, right? So on the piano, it makes more sense sometimes to just, you can just go straight down. That's not a move you can really do in guitar world. If you're like at middle C. So, I mean, I can... I could hop around and stuff, and I can make it sound a lot smoother. I'm sure it's probably sounding really choppy right now. I'm just playing kind of notes and not thinking about my diction with the instrument, if you will. The notes are going to fall so different. So, that's a nice little riff, right? That takes a lot more effort on a guitar, and I mean, that's a cool line. But 90% of guitar players would never play that line, because it's just not convenient. Right? Usually it would be... You see guitar players go vertically a lot. Or horizontally. Right? Right? I said right like a million times. We do a lot of vertical slides, vertical movements, no matter what genre. Guitar is a very vertical movement and horizontal movement. Piano is only a horizontal movement. That's a lot easier. done, if I try to do it that fast, it's just like physically not convenient to do a line like that. Whereas piano, I could do that. Very easy to do. So this is kind of my point. The theory of how guitar players approach playing. If you're trying to put a guitar solo in your song, right? So learn the different theories, especially like a lot of people want to put good drums on their stuff. I noticed the reason why people loops are getting so popular is number one, less people are learning instruments, which means they're meeting less musicians. And if you're meeting less musicians, you don't have solid instrument theory. So usually when you put stuff in, it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound right. That's why you grab guitar loops. That's why you grab drum loops and stuff, because you don't have instrument theory. You don't pay attention to what these people are doing when they play. Like, if you want to get good at doing MIDI drums, watch drum battles. They're going to expose so much of what their tendencies are. One of the biggest things I learned being in jazz band is that you never do a switch to from a hat to a ride or a crash. If you're trying to make a big bump, 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 you don't just hit the hat. It's always with a kick. Boom, boom, boom. That's where that pa, 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 that's where you get the power, right? Also, learn about what it means to choke a cymbal. That sounds different, and it has a different emphasis. Prince music has a lot of chokes, and I love chokes. And understanding how that happens, you can recreate that if you know what it is and you understand that fundamental of drums. If you understand kick has to happen when you hit those notes, then you'll create better drums on your midis. I'm not saying that you can't use a piano to create good sounding guitar or good sounding trumpets. I'm not saying that at all. You can. There are people that are really good at playing drums on the MIDI, but they have fundamental drum knowledge. Understand how drums work, how drummers operate, so that you can play those things, so that you can make the changes that need to be done, so that you know, hey, I'm gonna make a change here on the song and I want it to be emphasized. How do I structure the drums? Well, you gotta hit if you want splash or a crash cymbal there, you gotta hit the kick at the same time. Bum, bum, bum. That's how it happens. So take the time. Number one, always try to get better at your instruments. Right? Yeah, just try to get better at your instruments. I still got to do a lot more with this. Synths make it easy to kind of sound good, especially if you just stay in C major. It's hard to sound bad with a synth. Until you start holding the notes.